Kehinde Wiley was born February 28, 1977, and he is an American portrait painter based in New York City. He is most well known for his highly naturalistic and realistic paintings of African Americans, frequently referencing the work of old master paintings. He was commissioned in 2017 to paint a portrait of former President Barack Obama for the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery, which has portraits of all the previous American presidents. The Columbus Museum of Art, which hosted an exhibition of his work in 2007, describes his work as follows. Wiley has gained recent acclaim for his heroic portraits, which address the image and status of young African American men in contemporary culture. Wiley was included in Time magazine's 100 Most Influential People of 2018. Wiley was born in Los Angeles, California. His father, Isaiah D. Obot, is Yoruba from Nigeria, and his mother, Freddie Mae Wiley, is African American. Wiley has a twin brother. When Wiley was a child, his mother wanted him and his brother to stay out of trouble, and so she supported their interest in art and enrolled them in after-school art classes. At the age of 11, Wiley and his brother were selected with 48 other children to spend a short time at a conservatory of art in Russia, just outside of St. Petersburg. It was here that Wiley developed his passion for portraiture. Wiley noted that his brother was better at portraiture than he was, and this created a competitive rivalry between them. The siblings would compete to see who could recreate the most realistic images. He continued with other classes in the U.S. The twins were raised by their mother. Once their father, who had come to the U.S. as a scholarship student, finished his studies, he returned to Nigeria, leaving Freddie to raise the couple's 6 children. Wiley has said that his family survived on welfare checks and the limited income earned by his mother's thrift store, which consisted of a patch of sidewalk outside their home where she would sell things. Wiley traveled to Nigeria at the age of 20 to meet his father and explore his family roots there. Wiley earned his Bachelor's of Fine Arts from the San Francisco Art Institute in 1999 and his Master's of Fine Arts from Yale University School of Art in 2001, before becoming an artist in residence at the Studio Museum in Harlem. Who Wiley was later stated made him the artist he is today. Jeffrey Deitch, an art dealer and curator, gave Wiley his first solo show, Passing and Posing, at the Hoffman Gallery in Chicago in 2005. Deitch later represented him for the next 10 years. Wiley has cited the artist Kerry James Marshall as being a big influence on him. Wiley often references old masters' paintings for the pose of a figure. Wiley's paintings often blur the boundaries between traditional and contemporary modes of representation, rendering the figures in a very realistic way, while making references to specific old master paintings. Wiley creates a fusion of period styles and influences, ranging from the French Rococo, Islamic architecture, and West African textile design to urban hip-hop and the seafoam green of a Martha Stewart Interiors color swatch. Wiley depicts his slightly larger-than-life-size figures in a heroic manner, giving them poses that connote power and spiritual awakening. Wiley's portrayal of masculinity is filtered through the poses of power and spirituality. In a number of his paintings, Wiley inserts black protagonists into old master paintings. In 2007, he reimagined Theodore Géricault's early 19th century The Charging Chasseur, with a young black man in casual streetwear as the sword-wielding hussar in his painting, Officer of the Hussars. Similarly, his Napoleon leading the army over the Alps, circa 2005, is based on Napoleon crossing the Alps, circa 1800, by Jacques-Louis David. Often regarded as a masterpiece, Wiley restaged it with an African rider wearing modern army fatigues and a bandana. Wiley investigates the perception of blackness and creates a contemporary hybrid Olympus in which tradition is invested with a new street credibility. While creating the work, Wiley attempted to use real horses to model and found that the proportions between man and horse in the original work to be unrealistic. The purpose of art during David's time was to serve as propaganda. Although seemingly naturalistic, both Wiley's and David's portraits features riders who are not quite proportional to their mounts, to their steeds. Because men look a lot smaller on real horses, Wiley claims to be drawn to the illusion used by the old masters while also wanting to expose that unnaturalness. The appeal, Wiley is quoted as saying, the appeal, he supposes, is that in a world of unmasterable and so unknowable, you give the illusion or veneer of the rational, of order, these strong men, these powerful purveyors of truth. And so, this thing that I do is, in a strange sense, being drawn toward that flame and wanting to blow it out at the same time. His portraits are based on photographs of young men whom Wiley sees on the street. He has painted men from Harlem's 125th Street as well as the South Central Los Angeles neighborhood where he was born. Dressed in street clothes, his models were asked to take the poses from the paintings of Renaissance masters, such as Tiziano Vecellio and Giovanni Battista Tiepolo. Wiley describes his approach as interrogating the notion of the master painter, at once critical and complicit. His figurative paintings quote historical sources and position young black men within that field of power. In this manner, his paintings fuse history and style in a unique and contemporary manner. His art has been described in many ways. This reimagining was also seen in Wiley's VH1 commission piece, where he was asked to paint honorees for the 2005 Hip Hop Honors Program. Wiley depicted the rapper Ice-T as Napoleon and Grandmaster Flash in the Furious Five as a Dutch civic guard company from the 17th century. Sometimes Wiley changes the gender of figures portrayed in the older works. In A Portrait of a Couple from 2012, he replaces the couple depicted in the original painting from 1610 with a pair of young men. The same year, he exhibited two variations on the Judith beheading Holofernes, a biblical story famously painted by Caravaggio, replacing the male Holofernes with female figures. The New York Magazine described one of these as depicting a tall, elegant black woman in a long blue dress. In one hand, she holds a knife. In the other, a cleanly severed brunette female head. In October of 2017, it was announced that Wiley had been chosen by Barack Obama to paint an official portrait of the former president to appear in the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery, America's President's exhibition, along with Amy Sherald, who was chosen by Michelle Obama for the First Lady portrait on the same day. They were the first African-American artists to paint an American president portrait and the First Lady portrait, respectively. The portrait took him over 2 years from the first conversation about the commission to the unveiling, which took place on February 12, 2018 at the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery, where past presidential portraits have been displayed outside the White House. The painting was executed in the artist's studio in China. Compared to past presidential portraits, which show their subjects in a more realistic representation of an office as a background to show their authority. But Wiley depicted Obama seated casually on an antique chair, seemingly floating among foliage. Each flower points to a location which represents an event that happened in Obama's life, such as the chrysanthemum, which is the official flower of the city of Chicago, where he was elected as senator. African lilies, representing Kenya to show respect to Obama's father, who passed away when he was a child, and jasmine, representing Obama's childhood in Hawaii with his grandparents. The inspiration for Obama's pose came from the photography session to get photographs of Obama to use for the portrait. Wiley recalled a moment of repose in between shots when Obama was essentially as he depicted him in the portrait, a pose the artist felt was authentic to the subject. During the unveiling of Obama's portrait, Wiley stated in an interview that Obama wanted a very relaxed, man-of-the-people representation. And Wiley created that image through small details, an open collar, the absence of a tie, and the perception that the president's body was physically moving towards the viewer instead of appearing far away and aloof. Wiley mentioned that Obama and the foreground of the plants are having a battle of who gets to be the star of the show, the story or the man who inhabits that story, which Wiley wants to show that Obama is the one who claims the spotlight of the portrait, and not just his story and experiences that help to contour and shape his life. President Obama saw in Wiley's work that he is able to elevate an ordinary person to look like royalty and to lift them up so that they belong as a part of American life. Since Obama believed that politics should be about the country unfolding from the bottom up and not the other way around, Wiley also mentioned in the unveiling of Obama's portrait that he went to museums in Los Angeles and noticed that there weren't many artworks that displayed African Americans, and he wanted to change that. He hoped that one day the artworks that he creates can inspire future African American generations who look up at the museum wall and see someone who looks like them being displayed in the museum, especially the portrait of the first African American president. After the unveiling of Wiley's portrait of the president and Amy Sherrill's portrait of the First Lady, the Smithsonian National Museum saw an increase in the number of visitors from 1.1 to 2.1 million people. Rumors of War series and statue. Wiley's initial series of works titled Rumors of War were commissioned in 2005 and depicted contemporary men as opposed to the heroic equestrians in the originals, wearing sports team jerseys and Timberland boots, with Wiley deciding to keep the original titles. Wiley revisited this idea after visiting Richmond, Virginia, where he became interested in the Confederate monuments on Monument Avenue and the idea of the lost cause of the Confederacy existing within a modern hipster town. In response to the monuments, Wiley decided to create Rumors of War, a 30-foot tall statue of a young black man sporting jeans, Nike high tops, and dreadlocks, modeled on Monument Avenue's statue of J.E.B. Stuart. Rumors of War was unveiled in Times Square before being moved to the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, a mile away from the J.E.B. Stuart statue which inspired it and the institute that commissioned it. At 27 feet high and 16 feet wide, it is his largest work to date. Rumors of War was delivered in collaboration with Times Square Arts, Sean Kelly Gallery, and UAP. In October 2011, Wiley received the Artist of the Year Award from the New York City Art Teachers Association, United Federation of Teachers. He also received Canteen Magazine's Artist of the Year Award. 2 of Wiley's paintings were featured on the top of 500 New York City taxi cabs in early 2011 as a collaboration with the Art Production Fund. Wiley is featured in a commercial on the USA as a 2010 character honoree. Puma, athletic gear, commissioned Wiley to paint 4 portraits of prominent African soccer players. Patterns from his paintings were incorporated into the Puma athletic gear. The complete series, Legends of Unity, World Cup 2010, was exhibited in early 2010 at Deitch Projects in New York City. His work was exhibited in the National Portrait Gallery as part of the Recognize exhibit in 2008. Kehinde Wiley, A New Republic, was a retrospective at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts in Richmond, Virginia, in the summer of 2016. It displayed nearly 60 of his paintings and sculptures.